What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York at the Gramercy Theater. We just wrapped up an awesome interview with Insomnium. Now we are here with Oceans of Slumber. Thank you for your time, man.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I sadly had to miss your recent show at St. Vitus, so when I saw that you guys were on the tour, I was really stoked to see you guys.
Yeah, that was a really cool show, actually.
Yeah, very different. Like the last one was a little more prog oriented, from what I understand.
Record wise, maybe.
Or yeah,
Yeah, I mean the last record
or the last show at St. Vitus.
Well, so who was with us? It was
Binary Code and
Jesse's
Paranosis.
band, Paranosis. Binary Code, obviously, really
Yeah.
good band. So yeah, the bill was, I don't know who the opener is for tonight. I just walked in on their
Dead
sound
City
check.
Crowned.
Yeah.
They're my boys.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on up there with like a backing track and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, it's like a lot of stuff going on.
Oh yeah, they got a lot going on. But your latest record is The Banished Heart, and I was a real fan of the record. How was the recording for it and the reception and everything been so far?
Well, those are two very different and very big questions. Which ones do you want details about the recording?
Recording, yeah.
The recording of it was very intense. It was very. It was a long process. We tracked all the guitars at home, at my place, at my studio. So we tracked all the guitars there to kind of save on money, obviously. And since I edit and all that shit, and I can handle it myself, we did all of that to do pre-production. It's like one of the only times we do like click tracks and shit is in the studio, just for editing purposes. So live, we use no click tracks or backing tracks. Very much an organic band, and we create everything from scratch.
It's beautiful to hear that. That's kind of like a breath of fresh air with everybody using backing tracks.
Well, you know, 10, 15 years ago, people were complaining about hip-hop and rap and how these guys are essentially going up there and pushing play on something and singing over it. And this was like a point of, like, argument, and they would just burn on the whole genre, though I'm not a hip-hop or a rap person. But I watched that for a long time, and then now I see that every metal band is essentially a hip-hop or a rap artist from the early 2000s, because every single one of them have backing tracks and click tracks and all this stuff. And it's like, takes the danger element out, it takes the accountability element out, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's each
So
his
it's
own.
like, yeah, it's absolutely not for everybody. And so when I see that, I was, you know, it's really surprised, because we tour with a lot of bands, and the majority of those bands use backing tracks, and it's weird.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
You guys are the oddball out.
we're definitely the oddball out. It's funny because we've had these bands in one capacity or another, their systems fail, and they're like, some bands are powerless.
Yep.
And they can't even function. And then some bands like Neo, Nabla Viscaris, if they would have malfunctions, they would just power right through it. You know,
Yep, that's how you do it.
because they're a really tight band, so it was like cool.
Yeah.
But so the recording process, live drums, live keyboard. We tracked all the guitars. We reamped everything. We also did some like reinforcement with Kemper stuff, because that's just every producer's thing now. It's like a different way. Like with amps, you're moving air. With the Kemper, you're kind of like, it's a different type of forcefulness. And we kept everything pretty real and live on the record. And so with the record being so like sensitive and personal, that the ethic of recording and performing and what the record is about kind of like match and join hands perfectly. And so the reception to that has been very well.
Awesome. Now, what I personally enjoyed about the record is that there were very, very melodic songs on there, and then there was a lot of heavy stuff. Like,
Right.
was the process on that like a little bit different, or the emotional fulfillment? Or
Yeah, it was the record was written completely out of an emotional state, like a post. You know, I've gone through this like a zillion times. So it's the record was written because I had split up from a very long-term relationship, and she and I had a kid together, and so my daughter became like this point of reference for like what love and and understanding and like what like purpose was, and it changed for me a lot. You know, it's like the proverbial existential crisis that was answered by purpose and need. So the record was written from that place, but it was written from the place of like um, love, loss, the anger, the resentment, and all of that, because it was the fresh feelings of what all that stuff was, things that I had carried around for a very long time. And musically, the direction of what everything was that. Lyrically, Cammie came from a very similar place and tried to put her thoughts on it to paper and eventually to lyric.
Okay.
And so it's a very joint effort, and it's a collaboration between the two of us, because obviously now two of us are very much collaborators because we're together.
Well, it's actually really interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of people think, oh, the lead vocalist is the one who writes the concept behind everything and stuff, but the fact that it has a personal element with you. What I was curious is, being that Cammie is also singing about some stuff that you personally have gone through, did you kind of direct her, saying this is how I want you to express my own personal thing, or did you let her add?
No, she saw a lot of it like firsthand, and Cammie's a psychologist.
Okay.
She's a bachelor's in it now, or she's had a bachelor's in psychology, and she's like done a lot of post-school studying and personal research, and like I'm trying to push her back into the master's program, which she's going to do, I hope.
Good.
But she's an incredibly smart, intuitive, and very aware person, and so she saw the things, she could relate them or equate them to things that she's known and seen in her life, and she can put the story together pretty well.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was really easy for her to take her experiences and her thoughts on what any of this stuff was. So that's like the resentment ideas and the longing for love and all that kind of shit. And the last song, No Color, the last full song on there, No Color, No Light, she does a duet with Tom from Evergrey.
Yeah.
And that song is a combination of about her father. Her father died of cancer about 8 years ago. It's like kind of she stayed there with him the whole time and watched him wither away, and it was it's like this fantastical idea of like when you really love something so much and that you want to do anything you can to keep them there with you and protect them and not have them leave. And the idea of what that song was something to do with the cross between that and then how she kind of felt about the protective nature of me. And that's like the easiest way to put that. So it's a very, very personal record.
Now, being that it is so personal, if somebody were to listen to your record, and because I was a fan of the record, but I didn't know about like this personal experiences that you were having, if somebody interprets the record differently, our bottom line is, what I should ask is, are you trying to express your personal is like the main goal of it, or if somebody interprets it differently, is that okay?
I don't really think there's a lot of room for too much interpretation. I mean, I think it's really pretty straightforward. So what we find mostly is that people are relating the scenario because it's a common scenario, and it's everybody's impact or how it impacts them is on an individual basis, obviously.
Okay. So
when you have things happen to you, like you think like this is only happening to me, and I can't believe life's been like this to me. But then when you look in the broader, the broader scope, you'll notice that like this same exact thing in some minor change in detail has happened to this person, and they've had the same exact experiences, but it's just been through their eyes. So like we're essentially like breathing the same air, chewing the same dirt, as they call it, and we're not having people interpret it so differently. We're having people say like, so I went through this. Is this what that is? And it's pretty spot on, and that's what's like really amazing about it, is that they'll come up and say, fleeting vigilance, is that a song about a misguided anger or like a bias in a situation to where like people need to lash out on behalf of something that they really don't know about, or that they're protective of a thing that they shouldn't be protective of, and And so they'll come up and ask us questions about the song like that, and you're like, yeah, that's what this is, exactly what this song's about.
And when you hear about like do you look at the song maybe a little bit differently when you hear a fan like completely relate to it in a similar way you did?
No, you're just happy.
Okay.
It's catharsis, you know. You're like, I'm glad that, you know, it's like I'm glad this is a relatable thing to you because I went through it too, and then like you have, you know, there's a connection there, and they're like, it's kind of what we're looking for in music. If you're looking for stuff like, you know, if you're just listening to a band because you want to hear the drummer, the guitar player, brutality or technical, then that's what you're looking for, and there's the relatable, the essence of like what you are with that. And there are bands like us who people are like connected to in like kind of a more carnal, visceral, baseline level. So, you know, it's the one-on-one, and it's exactly what we're looking for. It's what we're shooting for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just have two more questions for you. Being that this record was so concept driven, because Insomnium's latest record is also very concept driven. So what I was curious is, did you obviously, because you guys were experiencing this, obviously the concept came first. Did that determine? Was that pretty much like the full force on how the music came to be, or
absolutely.
did you like adjust the style that you normally do in order for it to fit the concept? It just kind of fell into place.
We don't adjust anything. We do whatever the fuck it is that we want to do musically, and so if it's all out fucking funeral doom that is like the feeling or the need at the time, then it's like I'll say to the guys, like, so this is what I want to do, and this is how the band works. You know, the band works like that. And it's like, you know, hey, so I want to keep on like delving into this direction, and I want to go further. So let's like write something like this, and then I'll say I've got something. Here's my ideas, or here's a song, or here's a piece of a song. And then they'll say cool, and they'll latch onto it, and then Sean and Anthony and I'll get together and like write the music, or Sean will come in with riffs or a half completed song. And same thing with Anthony, but it has to be in a certain direction, and it's like kind of what we do. With this, so the Banished Heart, the title track was written first. Like, I'd been working on that for a long time. I wrote that whole song. And I wrote it with a purpose, and the purpose in the beginning is like the first half of the song I had written to Cammie, just because I write a lot on the piano, and I wrote this thing, and I was like, I don't know what this is, I don't know what it means, but I wrote this piece of music for you, and you know, here. And I was, you know, and I was still in the relationship with my wife, and it was very like a weird position for me because I hadn't like really felt anything like that. And it was like these reprehensible acts that you do. It's like a way of being or thinking that I'm not like. So for that to have happened in the first place, it was a powerful feeling and a strong feeling of like, you know, this is a wrong thing also. Like, you made me feel a certain way, and I wrote a piece of music for you. Okay. Know? And that's where like things had changed a whole lot. So I'd written the Banished Heart, the first half, and the second half I'd been working on for a while, but it was like kind of an ode to my kid. And I brought it to the guys, and we were at the jam room, and I was like, look, I got this whole thing, and it's all on piano. The whole song's on piano. And I just had to adapt it to the band and the orchestra and all that shit. So I said, I want the whole record. The name of the record is The Banished Heart, because that's the name of the song. And I want to write a whole record in front of this and behind this, with this being the central theme of what everything is.
Wow.
And so the guys were like, okay, cool. So, you know, fair enough. And it's like, you know, you're basically like, you know, you got the ideas. We're there. We're following you. We're ready to go. Because to me, everything is like cinematic.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the interview we did sometime like in the past week, and it's like essentially it's like an Aronofsky film set to music, and like that's how the music side of what this stuff is like it's very cinematic. It's meant to be even in movies. Like, it's what I want it to be. Like, some of the songs obviously are a little brutal for that, but a lot of the stuff that we do would translate well to the scenery, and that's what we do. We write music like scenery. and then the lyrics follow suit, and then paint the rest of the picture. So.
Wow, very interesting. That out of all the interviews I've done, that was probably the most articulate way of expressing this. And the final question I wanted to ask is, I mentioned before we were rolling, if you were cool, you want to talk a little bit of gear, drum gear.
Sure,
yeah. What are your weapons of choice?
I play a custom kit built in Houston. There's a company there called CDC. It's called Custom Drum Concepts. He is a professional snare drum builder and has been for a long time. He builds his most incredible snare drums in the world. And he builds for like the Descendants and like Black Flag and like a lot of these old school hardcore bands.
Man, you're in the hardcore capital of the world now,
Right,
so
yeah.
people might notice that in
Which
your drums.
is cool. He's a personal friend, and he was like, "Hey, let me build you a drum set. You buy the stuff, whatever you want, and I'll build it for you, and let's just see how it goes." So it's the bizarre thing about this is that the kit is like 4 and 6 ply maple. It's very thin. Super
Yeah.
thin.
Aren't you worried that that's going to get damaged on the road?
5 years and it's been going strong. So it's 4 and 6 ply, and I think it's like the bass drum's even 6 ply. The bass drum's like feather light. It's fucking incredible.
Wow.
But the bass drum is so infamous among people that use it that they always take it over the trigger because it's so punchy and it's like so articulate. It's like an incredible fucking. It sounds so good. It's a 20 by 20, so it's like this little fucking like fat tube of bass drum. So when you kick it, it's got a big heavy ass down pillow in it. There's no resonance to it. It's just thump. It's fucking. It's the perfect metal bass drum.
That's awesome.
The snare drum is a segmented black cherry, 20 ply.
Wow.
And again, so once I got that, I've never even looked at another snare drum. Like I don't give a fuck about anything else. And
Ooh, wow. And I know that drummers are big gear nerds, so.
and it's trick anodized hardware for the whole kit, but the tubes and the lugs on the snare drum are DW, the brass gold thing that they do. So there's that, and cymbals for me, I'm like real big on like the Paragon Sabian shit.
Okay.
So I use Paragons and AAXs, dark cymbals, like big cymbals, 19s, 18s is the smallest I'll go.
I'm trying to picture this kit in my mind right now. I'm like really stoked to see your set now.
Yeah, it's up on stage. Go give you a look. It's but I play 1 up, 2 down.
Okay.
Because I like the more traditional look, and I like the spacing on the ride cymbal.
Yeah.
I don't like the ride to be anywhere that it doesn't need to be within my 45 degree zone.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of articulations and like cymbal stuff, and so I mean you'll see. We're very, very drum driven band. So it's a very intense drumming.
Famous saying: if your drummer sucks, your band sucks.
Yeah, hopefully I don't suck tonight.
But I want to thank you so much for your time.
Of course, man.
Can we be expecting any more touring for the Banished Heart? Anything?
No, we're doing Prague Power in September.
Okay.
And we are going to perform the song "The Banished Heart" for probably the first and only time ever live.
Wow.
It's going to be three keyboard players, myself being one of them because I play all the piano and the synths on the record. So I'll be playing piano for the song, and then Ash from Voyager, the Australian band, he'll be playing drums.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're all friends, and he's a hard hitter, like I am, and I was just like, it just makes sense because he's really into that stuff.
Awesome.
So he's gonna do that. Tom England from Evergrey is gonna be in Atlanta. He's doing the duet with Cammy, No Color, No Light. So I am very sure, just like tonight, you'll probably see, is that by the time we play that song, there's generally like handfuls of people that are just like openly crying at the show.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's like, again, it's a catharsis. It's like they need it, we need it. We wrote the song.
You both feed off each other.
But Cammy is very much tired. She's emotionally drained, and it's hard for her to sing that song every night. So it gets worse now because now she can't contain herself, and people aren't used to seeing people actually be emotional live.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. And Cammie is here. Speaking of Cammie. Yeah, pop in.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
We were just wrapping it up, but thank you so much for everything. I was telling him I missed you guys at the St. Vitus show, so it's great to get a chance to finally see you guys live tonight.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
We're excited. I'm excited.
But everybody, we are here with Oceans of Slumber. Pick up their latest record, The Banished Heart. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.